sent out an email after work hours, and I was quite reprimanded.
And I love the punishment that you've gotten. So what was your first punishment?
Movie tickets.
There's a saying that life only truly begins at the age of 40. Yet having a career switch at 40 can be daunting. It takes courage to leave all things behind and step into a whole new world of the unfamiliar. But I'll still say, go for it is never too late to search for a new meaning in our lives. I can safely say that people of our generation know of this name, Sharon Au, from a local media sensation that won the hearts of many to now an investment director in France. Sharon is an inspiring woman who has paved her own way in life. 成人的新节奏，跳跃的新时代，动感的都会，不让你空期待。Hello everyone, you must be very familiar with this. Yes, today we have a very special guest all the way from France. She is so near, yet so far, because so near in our hearts. So far because I'm gonna ask her this question. Hi Sharon! Hello!
Bonjour, Pauline. Bonjour, everybody. Sending you my love and well wishes all the way from 6,663 miles away from Paris.
Paris, oh, so romantic. Wow, so what happened to you? You found a Frenchman and you go over there, is it?
Unfortunately, that would have been really a beautiful Cinderella story, but unfortunately, that kind of destiny wasn't for me. I didn't find any romantic French man here.
Okay.
After going around the world, I still think I love Singapore men.
All right. Okay. So, what is your reason for leaving Singapore, your hometown, and with all your your loved ones and lovely food over here in Singapore, and go all the way to France to start afresh? Yeah.
Okay. The thing is, people think it is a daunting aspiration. Okay, to leave your comfort zone, to go to another city. But then you see, that's the reason why in my opening, I stress the distance between Singapore and Paris is merely 6,663 miles. And you know, every city now we're connected by social media, by FaceTime, you know, is no longer the days in the 90s where once you're abroad, you seem to be disconnected from your family and loved ones. In fact, you know, I think I've gotten closer to my mom ever since I moved to Paris because I bother to text her every other maybe 3 hours just to check if she's had her meals, how is she feeling, is she hanging out, is she obeying the COVID rules. You know, talking about Instagram, you are quite correct because I was very motivated to post ever since I moved to Paris because the environment inspires me so much with its beauty, its nature, the changing of the 4 seasons. So to me, you know, I'm a newbie in a new city. I absorb everything like a sponge, and I find everything very interesting and exciting.
You are doing so well in Singapore. I mean, people probably move over to start afresh because they are forced to. But it's like probably they are retrenched or probably, you know, during COVID situation, no choice or things like that. But what's your reason for really putting aside everything over here and move over to France? Yeah, and why France specifically? Yeah, of all countries.
I think I made that leap of faith because I wanted to change a little bit the quality of my life. In Singapore, okay, we are paid very well, and the environment and the economy is so thriving that we have to stay competitive in order to stay relevant. So in Singapore, I actually spend every minute of my waking hours on my emails or at work or on projects. I never let myself had a chance to rest. So you see, even something so fun like social media for Instagram or Facebook, I use it for business. So we led a life where everything was circling around work. I neglected all the other aspects of life. So it was one of those very typical case of, you earn so much money, or you are at such a high level position, but you never feel the real joy or happiness that we are supposed to be, enjoying from this stage of our lives. So that's why, I've been battling and struggling with this notion, but because everyone almost around me in Singapore were going through the same thing. So for me to question that kind of culture, it seemed very out of place. In fact, when I confided in my colleagues, in my friends, even in my loved ones, they didn't understand why was I whining. So they always say, Sharon, stop whining. Can you stop complaining? Do you know so many people would love to be in your position? Stop being such a spoiled brat. So I was taught to, stop questioning all these, philosophical thoughts. So the years went by and I just got more and more fatigued. I think I got a little burnt out, but being burnt out and admitting that you are burnt out was a sign of weakness. Okay, so very sensitive. If you admit that, people look upon you like, oh, you're so not cut out for hardship. So I don't know, this Asian expectation of a hardworking woman was just so demanding. But you see, many women did it. In fact, I'm the lucky one, because many of my friends actually, they had to juggle work, family, children, and their own passion. So, and they are still surviving. So, I've been taught to, just really tell myself, okay, just shut up and just, move on, Sharon. But until one day, I went through a very specific, tough episode at work, which got me quite determined to get myself out of such a challenge situation. So I don't want to elaborate on, because what's past is past. And also I had received so much support from all the companies I work with and work for that, I don't want to say anything that would offend anyone, because really, people react to different situations, time where they find that, everyone has their own challenging moments now.
Yeah, I think this is probably quite common as we move through this, what probably a lot of people say, midlife crisis. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, it was probably part of the reason why I was so impulsive and, quit my job, was probably midlife crisis. Men, when they have midlife crisis, they buy a sports car, they suddenly drive a Lamborghini to work. I think for me, my midlife crisis, I just suddenly quit and pack up and go to a foreign city and learn a foreign language.
And why specifically France? Is it because out of Asia context? Because I know you spent a few years in Japan. So, and you have a family whom you are very close with. So why not choose Japan, and why then France?
Actually, because Japan would have been really wonderful. So, I could spend time with my host family. But, actually, I suffered a little bit of PTSD from the 2011 March 11 earthquake and tsunami disaster. I was there. So since then, I had qualms about living in, sadly, it is still my favorite city in the world, Tokyo. But I find it very hard to face up to my trauma. So I chose France because actually in the university days, I took French as my fourth foreign language. And since then, I haven't been able to practice. So I've really forgotten about, the proficiency of French. So when I was thinking of which city to make my second home, I thought immediately of Paris, because I have a very close university friends a friend who is still living here. So I thought, okay, I can crash at her house till I find my own footing, till I settle down. But at least I have someone who can, whom I can confide in.
The thing is this, I'm so amazed because you can speak so many languages, you study political science, and taking things like so different from what you are doing right now. Right now, you are actually an investment director in France. So maybe you would like to share with us what exactly do you do, and do you have any form of an experience in investment to land you in this job? Yeah.
Before I go into this, I need to make a slight confession, which is when I left my job in Singapore and uprooted to come to Paris, I didn't have any job prospects in mind. In fact, I did the stupidest thing my mom told me was never resign without a job at hand. Because when you look for jobs and you are so ready, you're so available, people would think that you are not competitive enough, or when it comes to negotiation, you are always going to be at a disadvantage because people know you need the job. So I did the stupidest thing, which was to leave and then seek a new job prospect in Paris. And it was very challenging, so much so that I actually gave up on sending out resumes because the rejection was real. My pride and my ego, my overestimation of myself, I really suffered some self-esteem issues then, because in Singapore, I thought I made it already, and so famous, everybody knows me. So I didn't really expect to face so many challenges on a foreign land. And the reason how I was able to, against all odds, manage to land such a good position in a French company was still because of one word: connection. So this is a confession I want to admit. Many people deem connection with a negative connotation, thinking that people with connections pull strings, they get to be where they are, but they have neglected the fact that on top of your own abilities, your hard work, the amount of effort you put into every project, if you're only focused on that and you didn't build up a good network, you are not going to get very far. Or rather, in my case, I would have suffered and died and have to pack up and go back to Singapore if I hadn't had a good connection. So for me, I think I've shared this story before. My ex-chairman of MediaCorp came over to Paris because of business, and then we had dinner together, and he was just casually asking me about my new job. So he was like, "Sharon, how's your job? How's Paris?" So I just, as I was eating, very innocent, I said, "Oh, Paris is so nice. I walk every day, blah, blah, blah. I walk along the river, take pictures for Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I haven't found a job yet." Wow, my chairman, this is like the worst, laziest news ever for a person, an ex-subordinate of his whom he regarded rather highly to be, free and easy and jobless, without even listening to me and my aspirations about how I want to take 1 year off sabbatical, blah blah blah, find my soul, find myself. He didn't even listen to that. He went ahead to straight and immediately connected me with his partner, his French partner. Yes, so thanks to my chairman, I had the chance to start life anew in such a challenging city, in working for a French company.
Yes, I also agree with Sharon. Our network is actually our net worth. So a lot of us probably think that education is important. Yes, qualification is important. Yes. But after that piece of paper, what comes along would be the connection after that. These are built up over the years. I can tell that you really have great connection.
Yes, because these are actually my friends. I mean, some of them started off as business associates, but the relationships have evolved so much so that we have a true, genuine friendship between me and my friends. And so each time I come back to Singapore, to them it's very rare because it's once a year. So, we would be dying to catch up.
Yeah,
But that is friendship. The connections that I was advocating was because many people had really a very wrong idea about people who move forward with connections. I must have a caveat, which is, first of all, your foundation has to be stable. I mean, you have to be hardworking and experienced and talented yourself, because without that, you can have all the best people vouching for you, but if you're not able to deliver, people can tell straight away. Build up on your own accolades, but at the same time, don't neglect on knowing people with influence, because they will be able to help you one day when you are down and out, which was what happened to me.
What is the difference between like Singapore and France in your working environment, and especially in the investment line? Yeah, I mean, investment in Singapore, we're a financial hub over here. Definitely, every time I see in our Shenton Way, our financial center, the Marina Bay, at night, it was like brightly littered. People are still working. We are well known to be hard-working. Yes. How about you in France, right? Is that the same thing?
I believe, I'm not sure if you've heard of my first hoo-ha when I first arrived, within my first few months of starting work. I'm not sure if you heard about my email incident. I was being the typical Singaporean on the ball worker, and I sent out an email after work hours, maybe a bit later than the usual emails, and I was quite reprimanded, by my colleagues, and that was the first sign of a culture shock, which I took about 9 to 10 months to slowly be accustomed to the difference in expectations in two different cultures. And I'm not sure if it's purely a French thing, but maybe it's in general is more of a European way of working. And then in a wider picture, maybe it's got to do with Western and Asian values and the contrast and the differences. So actually, I would really, whoever approached me, I would really tell them, wherever you work, really do as the Romans do, okay?
And
it doesn't need to be in Europe. Even if you go to China, you go to India, you go to Japan, you go to Korea, just obey and just respect their culture, and you will not go wrong. Don't try and impose your own style of working and think that is the only way and is the right way. There is no right way, actually. The only way is to follow their way.
Yes. And I heard you were being punished, and I love the punishment that you've gotten. So what was your first punishment when you didn't hit their advice, you sent the email? Was
movie ticket.
Yeah, movie tickets. You were given the movie tickets for okay, for you, that's the punishment. And I heard you did the second time, and there was another punishment, something similar.
Yoga lessons.
Yeah, yoga lessons. So you are given free yoga lessons.
So you see, that's why we have to embrace the other cultures, because look at them. The emphasis for them is true work-life balance. So the reason why they would, offer you movie tickets and yoga classes, because they were afraid for me. Probably they were thinking, okay, this crazy midlife crisis woman is now alone in Paris. She probably has no friends, so she has no choice. She has to open her laptop and start emailing people. So maybe we have to occupy her, invite her to our house for dinner, which they did. Send her for nice classes so that she knows how to enjoy her after work time in a very relaxed manner. I was shocked at first, but it slowly dawned on me, this is what I meant by the difference in the quality of life. French people work very hard during office hours. In fact, there was one myth that I quickly debunked, was people talk about long 3-hour lunches. No. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in the finance sector, no, there is no 3 hour lunches. In fact, lunches are most of the time lunch meetings. So you eat while you meet, or I see my colleagues eating in front of the laptop, still working, just munching a sandwich. So it's a 30 minutes to 45 minutes sort of break. And even this lunch break, I see them still working. So maybe people's idea of 3 hour lunches, they're probably not in the finance sector. This would be impossible in Singapore. In Singapore, I have too much ego and pride. I think, oh, I'm Sharon Au, and it's very embarrassing if I go and apply for a job